And welcome back to Corp Videos. Today's Corp video comes to us from Brandon Whitman, and I'm Memba, who asked the question, what Corp does Severus Snape's Dumbledore, Severus Snape's from the Harry Potter films and book series obviously belong in. Now, to say, it's like, well, what about the books versus the movies? Well, they didn't do everything to a T. There's certain things in the books that are left out of the movies, but in terms of the characterization, they did a pretty good job. So I don't think it's wrong to basically say I don't have to use both the book and the movie when I'm just they both kind of did their job. So we will mostly just look at the movie version of Snape, knowing that it's still close enough to the book version, in my opinion. And Snape is actually a pretty diverse character. He does run the gamut quite a bit on certain aspects of the emotional spectrum. Let's just get right to it. First and foremost, get it out of the way. As it states, he would be a Black Lantern on the grounds that he's dead. There you go. But at the same time, that's no fun. So besides the fact that he was titled a Death Eater, is he someone who would have represented death very well living? Probably not. No, there are probably other Lantern Corps who would qualify more effectively for. For example, he does have the qualifications, I think, to be a Green Lantern. He's faced great fear. He's overcome it. Hell, he faced his death. He was scared and dying, but, he still faced his death. He stood against many powerful wizards before. He's got a decent amount of willpower, so I would say Green is a possibility. Although, of the remaining three I have on here, it's actually probably the weakest option. He's also, though, not a White Lantern, because even though he was living, he certainly didn't, live life to the fullest or anything on that level. It was just, he was a living being. There you go. Though, another Lantern Corps I think he could qualify for is the Lantern Corps of Love. Now, this is a big one. This is probably one of the ones a lot of people in thinking of states would probably go for. Because, ultimately, yeah, he did love Lily Potter with all his heart. Everything he did leading up to, he cradled her dead corpse in his arms. He looked after Harry, even though he resented Harry because it reminded him of his father, who he did not like. But he still looked after Harry due to the love he had for his mother. And, but in his death, he still, I believe, he mentioned, you look just like your mother, or you have your mother's eyes. There's something, he made a comment about his mother. And, it's just one of those things where his love for Lily is what ultimately, kept him going. So, Sapphire, I think, is a very reasonable Lantern Corps to choose from. What wouldn't be a reasonable Lantern Corps, honestly, is Compassion. Even though and that's because, it's not because he lacked compassion. It's actually the opposite. He had compassion. In fact, lacking compassion is actually a way to qualify for that Lantern Corps. So, the fact is, he had enough compassion to not qualify because it wasn't his dominant trait. So compassion would not work. Fear. Now, this is very odd because I think a lot of people would also think fear for Snape fitting. And I'll say this, the students were definitely wary of him, but the Slytherins weren't scared of him per se. He was the head of the Slytherin house. But when you really break it down, most people had suspicions of him, but they weren't really afraid per se. They were worried he might be trying something and all that. So, there's a level of fear he instilled, but I actually don't think it's high enough to really qualify for a Fear Lantern Corps. But I think it's the next best option to Green. Also, he would not qualify for a Orange Lantern ring. He just wasn't a greedy individual. Now, yeah, let me put it this way. He clamored for the Defense Against the Dark Art position for years. But that's not greed, that's just wanting it. And he eventually got it for a while. So, there you go. Then we have the other one, Rage. Now, this one, I think, would be overlooked. While it's a controlled rage, clearly, it's clear that man had deep-seated anger still just boiling under the surface. He had, even though he protected Potter, he still had a resentment towards them because of his dad. He hated them for what they did to him. So I think he carried a really large grudge throughout his life. So I think red is a possibility. Admittedly, I don't think it's the strongest one, Just like I think a bunch of them aren't the strongest, but it's a possibility. Now, the last one I want to touch upon is one I didn't put up here, but it's also one because initially I wouldn't think of it, but it's one we should discuss, is hope. Snape didn't instill a lot of hope, but faith did get put on Snape, and Dumbledore put his faith and trust in Snape, and Snape fulfilled that. Add on to the fact that it's clear Snape ultimately was a good person because he was playing both sides of the fence, ultimately playing the field for the good guys in the long term. So, I mean, and that's probably, and you can't do that without having some level of hope. Now, unfortunately, I don't think the level of hope he has or instills would be enough to qualify for a Blue Lantern ring, in my opinion. But I do think it's still reasonable to bring it up because I do think it is a conversation topic to have. So ultimately, of this group, obviously he is a Black Lantern in death, but out of death, of being alive, he was not, despite being a Death Eater at one time. The name's a bit misleading. He's not enwrapped in death. Is he a green? Is he predominantly a green, a yellow, a red, or a Star Sapphire? Well, in the least order, I'd actually say it probably goes fear, because he really, even against other wizards, he didn't instill that much fear. I mean, people were wary of him, knew of him, but it just wasn't something that was strong enough to, I think, be the defining core for him. Then I'd say Will. Will takes a big bump compared to fear, I think. He showed enough willpower to possibly qualify. But then you now get between love and rage, and ultimately, rage, I think, came in second. I think ultimately his love that he had for Lily and that he carried for Lily ultimately was what won the day out, and it's clearly what defined his character in the end. So I think, weirdly enough, Severus Snape, the slimy, greasy Alan Rickman, God rest his soul, a mother effer, he's a Star Sapphire. Yeah. And it's what it is sometimes. But this is all my opinion, too. I could still see many arguments for the other three. I could see an argument for the Lantern Corps of Hope also. The White Lantern Corps, the Avarice Lantern Corps, the Compassion Lantern Corps, those ones are the ones I would have a difficult time seeing an argument for. But if you could make one, I'd be willing to hear it. But my option, or my choice, ultimately, is Star Sapphire. But again, let me know in the comments below if you think differently. If you do, that's cool. Let's just discuss it as fans. Till then, though, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Like, comment, share, subscribe. Hit that bell if you want to be notified. We're getting close to that 9,000 marker. Now, 9,000, I'm not going to do what I was planning to do for the 9,000 one. The 9,001 is just going to be a Q&A. The 10,000 marker, that's the one where I think I'm going to do something a bit special. And it is basically something I kind of did. Spoilers, I am going to do a legitimate Hot Ones Q&A at some point. And by that, I mean, I am going to order the actual Hot Ones First We Feast hot sauce lineup, get some chicken wings, and basically do a legitimate Hot Ones Q&A. I kind of did a mild variant of it when I did the hot sauces from Walmart I found, but that's not a true. Like the hottest one was like the habanero, and it was hot, but let's be honest, it wasn't a Hot Ones. No, I want to get the actual hot sauces. I want to go to town on this thing. I'm going to do this thing, man. It's going to be legit. It's going to be lit, man. Okay, I'm done talking like that. Anyway, thanks for watching, though. Hope you enjoyed. Like, comment, share, subscribe. I'll see you next time.